Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm Selah P. Yes. I have. We're gonna. We're gonna review some explosive videos. Explosive, yes. Cox News and the Nazarites. Will the Nazarites prevail? What does it take to be a Nazarite? When you think about it, you have to write everything you do in blood. That includes, if you want to write a check out at the grocery store, you gotta write it in blood. You gotta puncture your finger, and then you gotta write your name, or it doesn't count. Hey, no one's watching. That's great. This is gonna be the best show ever. Nobody cares. No one ever cared. Yeah, everything is nothing basically. No, why? 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 Ah, all right. This is Sailor P coming to you with this explosive interview. All right, let's see what they got to say.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Church and State. Today, I am joined by one of our former guests, Dr. Ed Mazza, who actually joined this program at the very start when we launched. I don't even know, 7-8 months ago, Doc. I appreciate you coming on then. Thanks for coming back on today.
Well, like a bad penny, I bounce back.
Well, I think this topic...
There we go. Bad pennies. That's the argument. So you have to write everything in blood. You have to be a bad penny, and you have to bounce back somehow.
That we're going to talk about today is still relevant and I think very pertinent to what's going on. You just wrote a book, actually, which is why we want to have you on today to discuss aspects of that. The title is Saints vs. Anti-Popes, Evil in the Church and Rome Convicted and Evicted. Provocative title for sure. I want to talk about the book, obviously. I know you've been doing shows still with Miss Ann Barnhart. I'll bring that up on the screen as well for a sec.
Ann Barnhart is our favorite guest. She doesn't show up here, but boy, if she did, I wouldn't know what to do.
And just for people to check that out, obviously we had on Ann last year as well. You guys causing trouble over there, or what's the latest with you?
Yeah, we're the Tombstone 4.
Oh, really?
Ann Barnhart, Mark Doherty, myself, and Art Deco, our tech person.
Interesting. And so did conversations there or another podcast?
We are the Tombstone 4. That's right. Hey, I'm one of the Tombstones. Eve is one of the Tombstones. Empty bag of chips is the other two. Hi, I'm a chip. I'm empty bag of chips. Who else is with them? We got 3. We need 4. Oh, random book. Random book is number 4. Hey, look who we have. We got Cat Cans. Cat Cans is our favorite viewer / commenter. Yay. John's not here. John's pretending he's a regular human being. He's I got plans tonight, boys. I'm doing real stuff. Yeah. So he forfeited being part of the Tombstone 4. So we got empty bag of chips. We got Evie. We got me. And random book that happens to be on the table. Yay!
Lead to, I guess, why you wrote this book, again, I'll bring it up on the screen for people to see. I guess maybe explain the genesis of why you wrote this. And I think you probably wrote it pretty quick. I mean, I didn't remember this being out last year.
Selah,
Yes.
I'd rather hear the exodus of why you wrote the book, not the genesis. Can we get to the Leviticus part at this point? I mean, just skip over numbers at this point, right? Yay!
No, it just came out 2 months ago.
Mhm.
It's a good Lenten penance.
Sure.
And now it's an Easter treat. Yeah, well, there were certain truths that I thought needed to get out into the conversation, especially among the recognize and resist Trad Inc. folks. We often hear these theories about what would happen if a pope taught heresy. St. Robert Bellarmine said that he would lose his office ipso facto. He would automatically lose his office, as I believe most sedevacantists would agree. Then the other way of looking at it is Suarez and other theologians, John St. Thomas, who say that, well, you need an imperfect council to declare that the Pope is not the Pope anymore. Mm-hmm. And up until that point, he's still the Pope. And then you've got Bishop Schneider.
Selah, in this next clip. Wait, I need like unintelligible words. Wait, hold on. Let's see. In this next clip, what we got? Gobbly and gobbly Hold on. I'm gonna put this up in front. There we go. Oh, it says here that the fourth member of the Tombstone Mafia says, hold on. Oh, I can't read it. I can't read it. Oh well. Never mind.
Has a wildly extravagant position that is unheard of, actually, in church history, who says that, yeah, even if the Pope is a flaming heretic, you're stuck with him. The best that you can do is just to, try to admonish him in a charitable way. And what's lost?
I love my heretics flaming. How about you guys? Anyone in the chat love flaming heretics? Anybody out there? Oh. Don't be prejudiced, Mr. Catkins.
In all three of these positions that are out there, is that the theologians and the saints who, when they speak about these hypothetical cases, they're talking about the case of a pope teaching heresy, not as a pope, not in his extraordinary magisterium.
Yeah, how explosive is this already? This is just explosion after explosion. This explosive debate is so explosive. It's not boring at all. It's explosive. Yay. Yay. Oh. That's an explosive debate. That's an explosive debate right there.
Not in his ordinary magisterium, but as a private theologian. Much like Ratzinger in his trilogy, Jesus of Nazareth. He says up front, I'm not speaking here as Pope, so you're free to disagree with me on whatever I say here. So all the great theologians that have dealt with this issue, would a Pope lose his own?
I am speaking as Pope. I'm not a Pope. Well, maybe. Who knows? Anyone could be Pope, I guess. These days, as Pope, I'm speaking. Yay!
Office and all that. They're only hypothetically, and it is hypothetically because they don't think that God would permit that. But if God did permit it, he would only permit it to the Pope as a private theologian. And the problem is Bergoglio and Prevost have been teaching heresy. in the ordinary magisterium, not as private theologians.
This is so explosive.
Which means that, that's like a square circle. You can't have a pope who's teaching as pope, qua pope, grave error. And so I go into great depth with that in the book. I have scores of quotes from theologians and saints and doctors of the church and also I was happy to get, as you got for your recent book, I was happy to get the endorsement of Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, who said that he agrees with my take on the current crisis in the church. So I got to agree with that, right?
Fascinating. Yeah, I think there's so much to get into with all that, and I've been looking through the book. And the more we're bringing out, the theologians, the various theories on everything, I think is the better. And the more engagement we have, which I do want to have a good engagement with you today on this, because I've been talking about this with Sean Wright, WM Review, who I imagine might have a different take than your own. But before we get into that, because there's lots to discuss. This is sort of something up your alley, I imagine. This recent report from LifeSite, exclusive Vatican court confirms ongoing investigation into validity of Benedict's resignation. So, have you been following that, and what's actually going on there? Because I think to your position, as you said before, as an interregnumist who, again, correct me if I'm wrong, views the resignation as invalid, more or less. What does that mean for your position, and what do you make of that story?
Sila.
Well, how do you spell?
Sila, what is your take on this empty bag of chips? Chip, 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 chip. Oh, that's so instructive. Yes, that's so explosive.
Vindication. A lot of people in Trad Inc. Wrote me off as well. Maza's out there with this idea that the resignation is invalid, even though it was Anne Barnhart before me and Monsignor Nicola Boops and others before all of us probably, who pointed to the resignation as the thing that needs to be researched. Actually, Archbishop Vigano called for an official Vatican investigation back in 2022, I believe, and also an investigation of the last conclave. But the good news is there is an active official criminal investigation into the resignation of Pope Benedict XVI. Now, there are several factors at work here, right? There's the work of the Sant Gallen Mafia, the Freemasons. There's the work of deep state actors that were involved in this. Liz Ure has been doing great work exposing that side of things, the pressures that were put on Benedict, the funny business, to put it mildly. But there are also theological factors. Now, I don't agree with him, but in the Italian-speaking world, the individual most associated with investigating the resignation of Pope Benedict is Andrea Cianci. And he pushed very hard and very diligently, and it's his efforts that brought the Vatican to the point where they actually have an active criminal investigation of the matter. Now, I disagree with Cianci because Cianci thinks that Ratzinger deliberately sabotaged.
He disagrees. Will the explosions ever end? Oh, this is the most exciting content Selahcast has ever reviewed. Yay! What if Kabongos has anything to say? This is getting boring.
His own renunciation to create an impeded see, in which case Bergoglio was an anti-pope and not a real pope. And by extension, I imagine in Cianci's estimation, Leo would also be an anti-pope. But that, and he argues in his books and in his articles that Ratzinger has left us breadcrumbs and Easter eggs to be able to figure this out. I take a different view on this. I can get into that if you'd like briefly.
Yeah, I am more. I am interested in this, and just for.
Will the explosive interview ever end? Let's take ourselves a break because this is like way too high energy for the Selahcast. Let's see. Pope? History of confusion, Catholicism and the death penalty. It's our good friend, my friend, and your friend, everyone's friend, Nick Carbongos.
Pope Leo XIV has recently come out swinging hard against the subject of the death penalty. It was a couple of days ago, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, that he came out and he stated that he condemned the death penalty. And today, as you guys can see on the screen, Pope Leo is firing back. Leo wants the U.S. to abolish capital punishment, just as President Trump and A.G. Blanchet are reviving firing squads and actively seeking the death penalty. This
Is this really? Is this what our life has become? Commenting on these boring people? All right, let's go back to the explosive content. Let's go back to the Masoretes. Yeah.
For a bit more time because I don't know too much about it, and I don't think people have gotten to the weeds with it. So, I mean, yeah, explain more if you could, because I think it's interesting, so at least.
Selah, I got into the weeds of this just the other day. I was riding my dirt bike, and I got into the weeds of it. Why is my eye? Look on. My aesthetics. Oh. Is that better? Can you see my eyes now? What? Never rely on duct tape and soda bottle tops as your puppet, I guess. Hey, does empty bag of chips have anything to say? Chip, 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 chip. Hey, City P, stop biting off the Selahcast. Stop stealing our bits, man.
Yeah. So, again, just to sort of
we got a comment.
not to put too fine a point on it, but what I have been arguing is that Ratzinger, he had an attachment, what he calls a spiritual bond with the papacy, even after he left the papacy. And the question is, is that metaphysically possible? It was 10 years ago this week that Archbishop Georg Ganswein, who was Pope Benedict's caretaker in his last days, gave a speech at the Greg in Rome, in which he said that Benedict has established a...
I only give my statements at the Franks, not at the Gregs, if you know what I mean. That's when you know it's ex-cathedral when it's at the Franks.
A collegial papacy. Mm-hmm. We've got the Pope who's active, and then we've got the Pope Emeritus who is passive, so to speak. And let me give you an exact quote here. In June of that year, 2016, he was interviewed by Peter Bada, and Ganswein answered his question this way. He said, now, meaning the year of our Lord 2016, we have had for 3 years 2 popes, and I have the impression that the reality that I perceive is covered by what I have said. So this is what Ganswein told Peter Bada. And then Bata wanted to double. This is so jarring to the ears that Bata wanted to.
Bata rata sada data. Hey, mazzle razzle, dazzle razzle, drazzle.
Confirm he was understanding Ganswein. So he said, if I understand you right, he, Benedict, remained in the office, but in the contemplative part,
right,
without having any authority to decide. Thus, we have, as you said, now an active.
All right, whatever. Let's go back to our Carbongos friend.
The subject is a subject that has really torn Catholics, depending on their own political persuasion, apart for a long time, but in particular since 2018, when we see the Catechism of the Catholic Church revised on the subject of the death penalty to state that in no uncertain terms the death penalty is now considered to be inadmissible. We're going to talk today about the nature of the death penalty, the history of biblical, patristic, medieval theologians, the popes, the saints, their position on the death penalty, how this has developed and some would argue evolved into a very different perspective, as well as kind of the current shifts that we're seeing and how this applies, for instance, in the context of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and his perpetrator. And so we're going to look at all of this. And just as a note for individuals, because in the past I have had a history of coming out and blasting individuals inside of the role.
You heard it here first. Carbongos is out of the closet. He came out. Yay! Let's see.
Webcam audio. And let's go live.
Ooh.
Your Lordship, might we start with the very title of the motu proprio?
That's laugh out loud.
This is exciting.
Yes!
Yes!
Traditionis Custodes translates as the guardians of tradition.
Yes, I think that there should be parentheses LOL after that every time that is mentioned, because the traditions that they have, of which they have been guardians, are heresy, which goes back a long way.
What do you mean charitable? You know what?
Whatever. I don't know what to do with these people. Would one of you be interesting, please?
Contemplative part, which together form an enlargement of the munus petrinum. That now, in Latin, that means the office of St. Peter. Mm-hmm. And that is, in fact, what canon law says you have to renounce in order to renounce the papacy. But in his Declaratio of February 11th, 2013, Benedict doesn't say, I renounce the munus. He says, I renounce the ministerium, the ministry of St. Peter.
I don't renounce the munus. I renounce the Solaris. Yay! Why must Selahcast review this explosive interview? It's so exciting.
And that would jive with what Ganswein is saying, because if he had renounced the munus completely, then we wouldn't have two popes for the last. Well, now it's what, 12 years, 13 years. But at the time that Ganswein was saying this, 3 years had passed, and he says we have two popes, and that one is active and that one is passive or spiritual.
Right. Well, let me just jump in there real quick, because I know Vigano, again, who you've mentioned, has weighed in on this as well, and his remarks was that Clinton, Podesta were somehow involved in this with some sort of Vatican banking shutdown. I mean, before commenting on that, I mean, ultimately, because I know some folks are going to say, why are you beating this dead horse? It's been so long. What are the actual implications of this? Let's say...
I like beating dead horses. It's better than live horses, you know. Live horses actually kick back. Yeah. That was explosive. That was explosive content right there. With this explosive debate. Yeah.
let's say this court decides it was an invalid resignation. I mean, what's actually even going to happen? Are they going to, remove the Cardinals' hat from all the Cardinals who Bergoglio made? I mean, what are some real?
Yeah, I don't think that'll ever happen because I think what was it, Pope Michael or something made Cardinals, and they're like, yeah, we'll just envelop them in later on, whatever. Okay, I think that's not even a controversy anymore. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm a hand! I couldn't afford the $300 JP3 model. Don't forget to give all your money to SAP so that he can put more quality content like he did this morning. Like he's the most boring person ever on the internet.
Implications here, if any?
Well, Vigano believes that if Benedict was the true pope up until his death in New Year's Eve 2022, it would mean that Francis was an anti-pope. It would mean that all of his cardinal appointments were null and void. A lot of other actions would be null and void. And of course, Prevost was raised to the cardinalate by Francis, scare quotes. And so,
yeah, I don't think that's true. Does anyone didn't when there were three popes? Didn't the popes that made cardinals weren't they still made the cardinals? They're like, yeah, whatever. So I don't think that's right.
He would not have been eligible to be selected by the conclave of last year.
All right, another thing.
So yeah, it really according to Vigano, it would reset the table completely. So it really does matter whether or not Benedict was the valid pope up until his death, or
let's just get more Kabongos because you're boring me to tears. Let's get someone else that'll bore us to tears.
Of the pontificate, and I have publicly since repented from that. This is not going to be a polemic video or a bashing Vince being a traitor. And so we're going to look at all of this, and just as a note for individuals, because in the past I have had a history of coming out and blasting individuals inside of the role of the pontificate, and I have publicly since repented from that. This is not...
What? You repented? What? Yeah, let's listen to the third boring person we have here.
You post something stupid in the public forum, and you deserve to be derided. You deserve to be shamed. 100%.
Hurry up.
It's coming from Avoiding Babel. Of course it's fake. So I gotta show this thing, right?
Oh my! Oh, sorry, I said FP. What are you gonna do? Let's go back to the mask.
Well, that's really interesting because I haven't heard him say that recently. Because I mean, he did try to meet with Leo. I think he did publicly expose that he tried multiple times to meet with him, and even after the conclave, he didn't, I think, continue on with that theory. So I guess because let's go with that theory though. Let's say that's the case. Then maybe in your own view, if I could ask you, and maybe you've written about this in parts of your book, if that's the case, then where's the actual hierarchy? These are all fake cardinals, fake electors. Because this is a dilemma which people often ask the sedevacantists contingency. They'll say, well, where is the church? I guess maybe in your view, Dr. Mazza, if this is all the logical conclusion of your own thinking, then where does this lead?
Well, guys, I think it says somewhere that Satan can't use the rules of the church to destroy the church. I think that's written somewhere, isn't it? Somewhere? I don't. Everything they're saying here is kind of like a non-issue already.
Things, I guess.
Right. Well,
wait, I'm sorry. Chip wants to say, empty bag of chips wants to say something. Chip. Chip. Thank you, Potato Chips. That was wonderful. I couldn't have said it better, but you could be a poet.
Things get complicated, right? Because
Yes, they do.
things get complicated because there is certain of us think that there's supplied jurisdiction at work, right? Others would say no, but I will say this for those.
Some would say yes. Some would say no. Some would say maybe. Some would say perhaps.
Those who claim that it's not possible for us to be in an interregnum right now because we would never be able to get out of it, and the church is indefectible, and Christ has always promised that there's going to be successors of St. Peter. I would say that a current sede vacant does not preclude.
Did we just witness the invocation of the gates of hell? I think so.
It doesn't mean that we can't have popes again. Okay, it doesn't mean that we don't have a hierarchy. As long as you are a Catholic, in the fullest sense of that word, you have not lost your office. So,
as long as you pretend to be something you're not, you're it. That's another Mazite thing. If you're a Nazarite, you have to write everything in blood. What was the other thing you have to do? He mentioned it earlier. But at this, a Mazarite is a Catholic who says he's one, and that makes him one. Despite his actions, despite his own thoughts, despite his words. If you think you're a Catholic, you're a Catholic. You heard it here first on the Selahcast.
what I would say is that I go into some examples in the book, but there have been disputed elections in the past or disputed situations. And, we've heard, especially from Trad Inc.,
It's going to be a polemic video or a bashing video at all. I encourage everyone to pray for both President Trump and Pope Leo XIV, as that is good and right, and just that should be the thing that we should do as Christians, right? This should be something that we should all bring into our own consideration.
He goes into the Holy of Holies with the linen vestments, which Exodus 39, Leviticus 16, Exodus 29, all say is done by the high priest. And in Exodus 29, which Aaron shall use, and his sons shall have after him, of his sons that shall be appointed high priest
doesn't
in
know
his
one
stead.
thing about the high priest.
Shall enter into the tabernacle of testimony to minister in the sanctuary, and shall wear it, the linen.
Selah, CDP, why don't you open up a history book? Why don't you read the Bible every once in a while? Hey, you remember when Pompey entered into the Holy of Holies? You remember that? Remember that episode in history, CDP? You remember that? You remember when Zadok took over? You remember all those things? Do you remember it? Yeah, probably not. Whatever. He's like, I will pontificate on things I know nothing about. Yay!
Opinion that any irregularity in a conclave is remedied by the universal peaceful adherence of all the bishops to the man who is claiming to be Pope.
I will say this. Saying that, like, just being honest for a little bit, in defense of ZAP, did Christ submit to the high priest? No. Paul did, but Jesus, he never did. But whatever.
So even if we had an election that was not legal according to whatever the latest document is, in this case UDG, all that really matters in the end is that the Catholic bishops of the world adhere to the man as Pope, and as long as he's Catholic and not a heretic or an apostate or a schismatic, we would have a valid Pope. So it's not this, conundrum that some people want to make it into.
That's all you've been making it into, is a conundrum. This whole video is a conundrum. It's not the conundrum everyone thinks it is. Oh, you mean like the thing you've been talking about for the last how many minutes? 16 minutes? Come on!
We've had interregnums before. We've had anti-popes before. So it's not doomsday.
Yeah, it's a really interesting position because you really are. You're like to the right of a lot of, like, I'll just say mainstream.
Yeah. Cat Cats makes a really great point. A conundrum wrapped in a conspiracy in a cube of perplexity.
R&R folks, Matt Gaspers, I've been discussing things on Twitter lately, and he has a very similar view in saying that, well, it has non-infallible decrees and the authentic magisterium, the Pope can err, and that's what we've been seeing.
I mostly focus in my studies and in my teaching on the founding of the United States as well as the American Civil War, the latter.
Selah. So now Nick's a teacher, is he? This guy thinks he's a teacher. Hilarious! Who's it think he is, Sarah P?
Investments, 7 days.
Oh.
And in the first chapter of Luke, we have Zacharias is also wearing the vestments and in the Holy of Holies. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because when Doofus Face here, Christopher, says Christ submitted to the high priest, who's essentially the first Antichrist by default, was casting out the money changers in the temple submitting to the high priest. Like, I did that.
No, he didn't submit to the high priest. Yes, that wasn't done because he got slapped in the face for not submitting to the high priest. And his only answer was, if I said something wrong, did I not say what was right? And if I said what was right, why do you slap me? Well, that was his answer to the high priest. As opposed to Paul, who got slapped for talking down to the high priest the same way Jesus did. And he said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were the high priest. As it says, do not despise your rulers," whatever. But Jesus didn't consider him that. Yeah. So, whatever. It's a different story with Paul.
Some of that, but then folks to the right of him, who I've had on before, Sean Wright and others, they will say, well, that we were going on 60 some odd years of the proximate rule of faith, which is what the papal office is, and that's been a office that has been
either
untrustworthy or has defected and failed to, again, secure and confirm the brother in the faith. And then you're sort of in this middle ground where you're like saying, I like some of this, I like some of that. And you're sort of...
Does Stephen Cox know what explosive means? The title of this is Explosive Debate. Explosive. There's no explosions anywhere in this stupid debate. They're all laughing. Ha 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 ha. Oh, that's so explosive.
Mixing it together. It's sort of, I don't know how to respond to it, but it's really unique.
Yeah, I mean, I disagree with Matt. I had a debate with him once. Okay. I disagree with Matt. I believe with all the doctors of the church and all the saints that not only is the extraordinary magisterium of the church protected from falling away from the faith, but the ordinary magisterium of the church as regards issues of salvation is also indefectible. It's I mean, the popular word that most people would understand is infallible, but there's some caveats that go with that. But the point is,
safe is a term I've heard. Is it similar to
yes, that is a term that was used by many theologians in the 19th and 20th centuries. Because, and I even have a quote in my book from Pope John Paul II.
Of course, is a major passion of mine. And so we're going to be using the rules of historical criticism to this subject. I believe that that's necessary because
ordinary magisterium, the Pope is not speaking as a private doctor.
Capitalism was never designed to help you thrive. It was
to fall into polemic debates one side or the other. We've seen a long history of that on Catholic YouTube of people who either are very critical of the papacy or very pro the papacy come out and they give their own interpretations. I'm wanting just to merely look at the data, raise some logical questions, and then leave it up to you guys to give me your thoughts in the comment section below. Again, your guys' viewership is greatly appreciated. So let's begin first by looking at some of these recent statements. So this is the current issue that we're dealing with, the issue of capital punishment. And this video right here was put out, I believe, today when it comes to its recency. So let's take a look at this.
The church teaches that the death penalty is inadmissible because it is an attack on the...
I need to re-look this up again. Do you accept that Paul VI isn't a material pope and JP2 isn't a material pope? Like, I don't think that thesis applies nowadays. I think that thesis is dead. Like the last...
That any of these great saints and theologians will even hypothetically admit.
Can someone suggest something I watch that's actually entertaining?
And even then, most of them think that he would lose
the
papacy.
What did I
just
miss?
by virtue of doing that.
This is
so
like the most
what Bergoglio did by putting in Amoris Laetitia and the Argentine bishop's interpretation of it, right, that you can be an adulterer and still receive Holy Communion, and putting that into the Acta Apostolica Sedis, the official, magisterial documents of the church. That's a square circle. That is impossible. The same thing with his denial of the death penalty in principle. You can't have a pope who's an actual pope teaching heresy, even in the ordinary magisterium. So I beg to differ with Gaspers. I beg to differ with Schneider, and I go into
and this to its recency. So let's take a look at this.
The church teaches that the death penalty is inadmissible because
okay.
On the other hand, you would think that if that's the case, I have just sealed the argument for sedevacantism, right? If you can't have heresy or grave error even in the ordinary magisterium, well then how do you explain the post-conciliar popes, right? And the short answer is, and again I go into more detail in the book, but it's not enough to be a heretic to be teaching.
The church teaches that the death penalty is inadmissible because it is an attack on the inviolability and dignity of the person.
Right? Because there's lesser grades of error. In order to be a heretic, you actually have to be denying something that's supposed to be held with divine and Catholic faith. Not all of our teachings are of that status, but even if they are, you deny them, that does not automatically make you either a material heretic or a formal heretic. What makes you...
I communicate as well as I think I do. Like, I don't understand how to communicate. Because this is what Sede Picante is supposed to be doing.
He's talking about himself in the
supposed
third
to be
person.
A troll vanguard show that goes out and acts in certain manners publicly, so that we don't have to have the trolls trying to directly engage with Signal Disorder Watch.
And now,
like, certain people should just block trolls, and certain people should engage with them. This is why we'll keep on talking about Abate. Like, probably for the next few years,
Yeah, Sede Picante.
because it helps us
Well, tell us what
as a
else
troll
Sede
to do
Picante
content when
is.
you have a troll to do content against. And it probably helps them as well.
Is you choose a different rule of faith than the magisterium of the Roman Catholic Church. And I would argue, and I argue in the book, albeit briefly, that John Paul II, Benedict XVI, and the other conciliar
My
popes,
left hand.
I've got dozens and dozens and dozens of statements from them where they swear by
Things
the
that run
magisterium of the church down through the centuries. So that poses a challenge for the Sede Vacantis position.
Empty bag of chips. Got
Yeah, I think we can. Well, I'll just get right into that because I've been making the case the opposite, and I think what I see at the council happened was an embrace of modernism in various ways, and the most explicit was in the ecclesiology. I'll just bring this up on the screen because this is this Twitter post that makes more sense. And when you look at the documents, I think you can see this present in them. And Dave Verboom deals with scripture, biblical modernism, Lumen Gentium, talking about the ecclesiology of the church. So they changed the understanding of the Church of Christ to be something that incorporates elements, non-Catholics are a part of the Sacrosanctum Concilium, liturgical modernism, Gaudium and Spes, philosophical modernism, Nostra Aetate. That's the document on the Jews and other religions, so that's religious modernism. And so my response to that would be, if I look at the remarks of Benedict himself, who even Bishop Barron said was part of the Progressive Party, and he was fighting against Ottaviani and others. And I look at his attitude towards modernism. I mean, here's another quote from Ratzinger in his diary on Vatican II. He was complaining about De Fontibus. He said the text was utterly a product of the anti-modernist mentality that had taken shape.
The right to life is the very foundation of every other human right. For this reason, only when a society safeguards the sanctity of human life will it flourish and prosper. Effective systems of detention can be and have been developed to protect citizens, while at the same time do not completely deprive those who are guilty of the possibility of redemption.
All right, so there you guys have it. One thing you can all say, and this is one thing I have great admiration for Pope Leo, is he is a sincere individual. You can see it in his eyes. I absolutely applaud him for that, for fighting for what he believes is right.
And negation, etc. And there's a lot of other quotes. And Ratzinger lives this out, the ecclesiology, the teachings of Nostra Aetate, the theology, the new theology. He was an exponent of that during his reign. And so, as much as he might have said, I don't deny dogmas. I mean, they're not going to do that. But what's classic of modernists is to say, well, the dogma will stay in place, but we're going to change how it's expressed. And we think the ecclesiology and theology can change over time. And I think that's where I'm not convinced of your position just yet, because they are living a magisterium that is at odds with the ecclesiology of Pius X, Pius XI, at the opposite of Mortalium Animos. When Mortalium Animos says no ecumenism in this way, and then we have Benedict out there meeting with Anglican laymen because they don't have valid orders, and so I see
Anglican ladies. Yeah. You're like, hey, you're an archbishop. You're a lady. Let's go hang out at my place. Look into the sincerity of my empty eyes. Whoa!
Leo and Francis, just as the fullest expression. So whereas maybe you could say like John Paul and Benedict, like they were like a beer. of modernism. But Francis and Leo are like just like a shot glass of like pure unadulterated modernism. So I have a hard time agreeing with you on that, but maybe you have some a response to that, because that's like what a lot of people I think would argue, right? So what do you think?
Well, again, John Paul and Benedict can spout modernist talking points, or even heretical statements all until the cows come home. But if they believe that they are following the apostolic magisterium down through the centuries,
till the cows come home, till the cows come home, till the cows come home, till the cows come home. Empty bag of chips, what are you gonna say? Chip, chip, chip. 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 Chip, 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 chip. Chip, chip. Hey, thank you, empty bag of chips. That was explosive.
they're not heretics. They're not even material heretics.
Oh,
and so they
why is
lose
that?
office. Now, I'm pretty liberal on this. I, with most theologians before Vatican II, would agree even a material heretic loses office automatically. Okay, but in order to be a material heretic, and Matt McCusker has a good article on this at LifeSite. I forget when that was published.
Selah, it's coming. This is one of the rules to be a Masorite. First, you have to write everything in your blood, even if it's like I'm buying a half pint of heavy cream, and I'm going to use this check. Well, you got to write in your blood, or it's not real. Now he's going to say, if you believe you're a Catholic, and you a Catholic, you a Catholic. Yeah, but what was he going to say? Hey, I'm Evie. Yay! What if you don't act like a Catholic? Doesn't matter. What if you say that the Catholic faith isn't true? Doesn't matter. You a Catholic.
That was 2024 or 2025. But let me just quote, I think this is Berry, Father E. Sylvester Berry.
Oh.
A person who chooses not to ascend.
We're going to quote Barry. My favorite Barry quote. Favorite Barry quotes coming up. I'm on John's commercials. Sorry, just let the commercials go through. There we go. My favorite Barry quote. Yeah.
Feels so good. You're lying here next to me.
Aren't you glad he's a doctor in the church?
You have no idea how it feels.
Yeah.
My hands just won't keep still. I love you, baby.
The church teaches is a heretic. If this choice is subjectively sinful, the sin of heresy is formal. If this choice is not subjectively sinful, the sin of heresy is material. If they have not, in fact, chosen a different rule of faith, but are merely in error as to what the church teaches, they are not a heretic at all. So let me give you a quick quote here from Pope Benedict. He says, this is from 1988, I believe. The Second Vatican Council has not been treated as part of the entire living tradition of the church, but as an end of tradition, a new start from zero. And he goes on to criticize that point. And then he says at the very end, the one way in which Vatican II can be made plausible is to present it as it is, one part of the unbroken, the unique tradition of the church and of her faith. So again, I could give quote after quote here, but that's just one example of how Benedict, at least in his mind, if we're to take him at his word, believes that this is just an expression of
taking people at their word.
Vatican II is just trying to find, as John the 23rd said, a new vocabulary.
And then you're taking him at his word, but you're ignoring his other words. Okay. All right. We're going to take him at his word. Oh, when he said all religions are great. No, not those words. His other words.
For these things, but he doesn't want to deny the magisterium of the church. It goes all the way back to the apostles.
See, I would see Vatican II, and I would praise John the 23rd as the Holy Office did, as not only a suspect of modernism, which Cardinal Delay, I think, actually said he was, but as someone, again, who tries to, in the face of decades of papal denunciations on these topics, Mystic Corporis, Pius the 12th, literally says, the Church of Christ is the Catholic Church. And then you have Ratzinger here in this book in the 80s, early 2000s. He says the subsistent formula in Vatican II changed Pius XII's formulation when he said that the Catholic Church is. And he says the distinction between subsist and est contains and conceals the entire difficulty of ecumenism. And I think when you look at the men who wrote the documents, again, the original schema of Vatican II, reiterated and were despised by not only the observers, so like Bishop Mormon, the Anglican bishop, as well as the other new theologians, right? Ratzinger, Kung, Rahner. So they strove to throw them all out, and what they wanted to do, again, I've said this publicly, is to impose upon the faithful their modernist tainted view, what I would say is a new religion of it. Now, they retain parts of, obviously, the Catholic faith itself. No one could ever dispute certain parts of that. But what they've done, again, Ratzinger wants to save Vatican II always. He never wants it to be a break. Obviously, it's his baby. But I don't think it holds up, personally. But you probably have some thoughts.
Well, again, the idea is, if you want to say that someone has lost their office, you have to say that they are a heretic. And to say that they're a heretic, it's not enough that they spout heresy. They actually have to intentionally believe that they are no longer following the magisterium, the rule of faith, down through the centuries, but they're following a different one. And I don't think it can be proven for any of the conciliar popes that was their position. And as regards the documents of Vatican II, Rahner and Ratzinger, sounds like a Nazi vaudeville routine, they had a breakup, right, in the early 70s. One went on to found, one had Concilium and the other one had Communio, right?
Wait a second. Hold on, let me self-declare. We're beefing. I thought when P meant Philip. Sorry. No, we're not beefing with CDP at all. We're a subsidiary of the City Picante network. We're doing his work. We're doing the work that he doesn't want to do. We're like his hitman. Yeah, when we're making fun of CDP, we're just joking around. You don't get whatever. Let's listen to more. Let's listen to more. Let's explosive.
So Ratzinger got more traditional the older he got.
Boring.
And as you have probably researched for your upcoming book, Archbishop Lefebvre asked a series of dubia of the.
John's upset that he's taking super tips. That's about it. And I think it's funny. And that's about it. John, right now, he's at a hockey game. That's right. He's at hockey. He's living his life like as a human being outside of this inner world that we live in. I'm like, I will stay faithful to the Selah commitment. Oh yeah, we're ready for the Civil War! Yay!
Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith. I believe it was in the fall of '85. And Ratzinger's office eventually answered him. Right, it was like March 9th.
On religious liberty, is that it?
Yeah, on specifically on religious liberty.
Yeah, I've heard that.
And with Ratzinger's approval, I don't know if he wrote the document. Maybe he did, but the document that was sent to Lefebvre in French, in answer to his dubia, says the following. For example, it says, quote, "The doctrine of religious liberty contained in Dignitatis Humanae, absolutely."
In this next clip, goobly goobly gobbly gaw. Yeah, this is Sunny P. Yay.
Does not include a relativist conception of truth, nor does it include the negation of the fact that the Catholic religion is the only true religion.
The Cold War.
Well, yeah, there's a lot to say there, I think. So if the position is that, and it seems like you're sort of agreeing.
I might have disagreements on this particular subject. I applaud his effort and his sincerity, and I am open to being corrected.
This guy's a jerk. Like, at least he had some kind of principles before. He was like, first of all, I want to say that Leo, hey everyone, Leo is sincere in his beliefs and thoughts. They're not Catholic, but he's sincere in them. Oh, what's that supposed to mean? I don't know. Whatever.
Who believe they're practicing Catholicism, but they're practicing something different, that they haven't lost their office. Do you believe that they are practicing the Catholic faith as it's been handed down throughout time then? Is that what you're saying, or what are you actually trying to say?
Well, what they do have a funny way of putting things sometimes.
Yes.
And I do believe that it was because of Ratzinger's faulty theology of the papacy that he believed he could somehow retain some spiritual aspect of it and not completely, give up the Petrine Munus. And I guess we have to thank him for his crazy ideas, because he saved us from Bergoglio actually being a real pope.
Yeah. His Petron Munus, not his Petri Lunas, his Petri Solaris.
And I make the argument in my book that neither is Leo a real pope. But in answer to your question, what I would say is that, yeah, they speak Vatican II, obviously, but they again, if you read statement after statement from these people,
does Anne Bernhardt have her own YouTube channel? Because I haven't seen it.
They don't want to negate the magisterium of the church. They think that they're following the church. They just think that they're finding a new vocabulary to express it. Now, we would disagree with them about a lot of things, but that doesn't mean that they actually lost their office.
I don't know how someone who's not practicing ultimately and believing what the traditional teachings are, especially on ecclesiology and theology and scholasticism and Dignitatis Humanae was purposefully written in a way to, after the council, ensure that the last remaining Catholic state
is a Christian and as a Catholic on this particular subject. So, what are my own thoughts? So, generally speaking, just putting it out there, I am pro-death penalty. I am pro-death penalty in a very liberal sense. When I say a liberal sense, I don't mean in the same way that modern liberalism maybe wants to reduce it. I actually believe that the death penalty needs to be expanded for a lot of crimes. I'm very old world in that regard, but I can.
We're going to be deconfessionalized, because that was what they wanted, and I think again when I read Ratzinger, although he might have said that to Lefebvre privately, his public actions as the man wearing the white vestments, when he says we have no, we are one with sister churches. Here's again, I didn't plan this, Doc. I'm not trying to ambush you. These are just quotes I tweeted.
No, it's okay.
So it's very like
this is good stuff.
But let me just read this real quick, because here's what Ratzinger said in '93. He's praising Oscar Kuhlmann, who played a huge role at the council. And he says, we ought to look first at the wider perspective of unity in the church and of the churches, capital C, that's a direct quote, and find some point of consensus on new models. Any such model could be expressed by the formula reconciled diversity. My views agree similar to those of my dear colleague Oscar Kuhlmann. And this, again, goes off what Ratzinger's thinking all along had been. If you go back to the council in his own diary, a basic unity must replace the idea of conversion, even though conversion retains its meaningfulness for those in conscience to seek it. And this has seeped through thanks to, again, the teaching on who is part of the church in Vatican II's documents, especially Unitatis Redintegratio. And here's my last point, Doc, I know I'm going long. In 2009, the USCCB forbids Catholics from trying to convert Protestants they call this sheep stealing. So, when we look at the marks of the church, one holy Catholic apostolic, this is a negation of the mark of Catholicity and saying, yes, we do need to bring souls to this church. This is the true one. But here's Ratzinger putting forth his ecclesiology, which to me, is completely at odds with Pius XII and his predecessors. And he's sort of diluting down this need for conversion. And I think he was the one who signed with the Lutherans during his reign an agreement on justification of these things. It all it's like death by 1,000 paper cuts, it seems to me.
Well, again, but show me the sentence where he says, I don't follow the traditional magisterium of the church. Instead, I follow the magisterium of the Church of Tomorrow. Now, I can give you quotes from Rahner and Bergoglio and these other characters that come very close to actually explicitly saying that, and you'd never find that in a John Paul II or a Benedict XVI. Again, if you'll indulge me, we go back to the answer that he gave to Archbishop Lefebvre to the answers to his dubia, and this is what Ratzinger says. Now, I want to read this, and then I want you to tell me, do you really think this is a heretic, apostate talking? He says, the freedom of the church, in addition to this common foundation, meaning like the freedom that people have as human beings, has another foundation of its own, one exclusive of a higher order, that of being the only true church, founded by God himself and having a divine mission. Now, does that sound like a heretic apostate to you?
So Ratzinger's theology on what the actual Church of Christ is in alignment with what's actually taught in the documents of Vatican II, namely Lumen Gentium, and which redefines the church, again, which I just quoted also in response, to include non-Catholics. And this is actually something I just put up on Twitter. It's all coincidental. I'm not sorry. I'm not trying to bash you here. This is the Catholic ecclesiology on the left, whereas the Church of Christ is the Roman Catholic Church. And then on the right, you have the Conciliar Vatican II ecclesiology, which the church is in the middle. Anglicans, other Protestants, Eastern Orthodox are part of that. And while Ratzinger says these things privately, the church is the true church, in practice, and his understanding of it elsewhere is completely at odds with the church's traditional ecclesiology and theology. So, and I guess my last point is his understanding of the living magisterium, because I actually side with Lefebvre in that dubia that he wrote, is off. And that's what we saw in Ecclesia Dei in 1988 when John Paul said Lefebvre misunderstands the living magisterium. And he said Lefebvre forgets that we want to help those who are attached to the Latin Mass. So obviously these, and Wojtyła was part of the whole revolution too. And yes, they all split up, but so did John Adams and Jefferson. They didn't get along after the American Revolution. Everybody sort of goes through these splits. But
again, how do they understand the magisterium of the church? And again, let me quote John Paul.
Van Barnhart, and yes, breaking a promise. I said that I would never make another video, and here I am making a video. In fact, I went through this whole rant on one of the Barnhart podcasts just a couple episodes ago. No more videos. And then, of course, I'm sitting at Mass, and I am absolutely moved after seeing all of the people who are so confused, so scandalized, losing their faith, leaving the church because of the Bergoglian anti-papacy. I said, all right, I'll make one more video to explain this in the hopes that it will do just one person some good, and maybe even in the hope
how the death penalty is inadmissible. It should be something that world governments, etc., should try to abolish in some form or fashion. This is a attack on the dignity of the.
I know, it would be nice, wouldn't it? It would be nice, these people.
And so forth. So things are happening.
I just want to take his particular statement talking about the
podcasting.
Because I'm afraid that even the Mass is going to be quickly coming under attack.
The immemorial magisterium of the church. John Paul says here is that, let's see here. Obedience to the teachings of the Second Vatican Council is obedience to the Holy Spirit, etc., etc., etc. And then he goes on to say that these tasks cannot be treated as though they did not exist. It is not possible to rush presumptuously ahead toward ways of living, thinking, and preaching Christian truth, and finally to ways of being a Christian, a priest, a religious, that are not envisioned in the integral teaching of the council. And then he defines what he means by the integral teaching of the council. That is to say, understood in the light of the whole of sacred tradition and on the basis of the constant magisterium of the church herself. A person who says that cannot be considered even a material heretic.
I think that, yeah.
He's affirming the rule of faith. You have to choose a different rule of faith. Now, are they mistaken in many things that they say? Yes. Here's another example. This is what he told the bishops during the U.S. bishops during one of their ad limina visits, John Paul. He says, the Pope expects from you a loyal acceptance of the church. You cannot be faithful and remain attached to secondary things, valid in the past but already outdated. You will not be faithful either if you try to build the so-called church of the future.
Well, everyone, thanks for joining us. It's been over an hour. This explosive content has been so explosive. Kind of boring. All right, guys.
This fag Kyle.
Yeah, that's usually the ending, wasn't it? I don't remember. And the stream. Yeah, it doesn't get better. Good night, everybody.
This fag Kyle